Our world was built upon the silent strength of metal. This journey into the dawn of metallurgy uncovers how a single technological revolution forged the first global civilizations. You will learn the hidden story of how ancient metalworking reshaped everything from economies to empires, connecting distant cultures through trade and innovation. Why did some societies master iron while others perfected bronze? What lost secrets allowed artisans to transform rock into gleaming tools and sacred art? What do you believe is humanity's most enduring legacy? A single chance discovery beside a campfire ignited a revolution that would echo for millennia. Picture an ancient artisan, perhaps preparing a simple meal, when a greenish stone tumbled into the hot coals. Instead of cracking, it began to weep a strange, glowing liquid that cooled into a malleable, reddish lump. This was not just a new kind of stone, it was copper, and its discovery marked the profound shift from simply using what the earth provided to actively transforming it. This is the dawn of metallurgy, the science and craft of extracting and working metals from their rocky ores. Early humans had long valued soft, native metals like copper and gold for ornaments, but the true breakthrough was smelting. This complex process required heating specific rocks in a controlled fire to temperatures high enough to release the pure metal trapped within. It was not merely about building a hotter fire. It demanded a sophisticated understanding of chemistry, airflow, and temperature control, knowledge that separated emerging civilizations from all who came before. Scholars like archaeologist Vincent Pigot suggest these first experiments were as much spiritual quests as they were technical trials. The act of transforming earth into a shining, useful substance likely felt like magic, a ritual blending practical skill with deep belief. Around 7,000 years before the Common Era, in regions like Anatolia, this knowledge crystallized. For the first time, humanity had a material that could be melted, cast, and reshaped. A broken stone axe was useless, but a damaged copper tool could be melted down and reborn. Why would these early communities invest such immense effort into mastering fire and stone? The answer lies in a relentless drive to innovate, a force we will follow next to the very cradle of this technology in the ancient Near East. These fertile valleys and rugged highlands became the world's first great laboratories of metallurgy. In the ancient settlement of Çatalhöyük in Turkey, archaeologists have unearthed small, carefully shaped copper beads and pins dating back thousands of years. These artifacts prove that metal use began long before the Bronze Age, in a time we often associate only with stone. By 4,000 years before the Common Era, this craft had evolved dramatically. Smiths were no longer just creating ornaments. They were producing functional tools, copper axes and chisels that could fell trees and shape wood with an efficiency stone could never match. This was a quiet revolution in agriculture and construction, granting these early communities a powerful new capacity to reshape their environment. The next great leap came with an accidental discovery, the creation of an alloy. A lone piece of tin, perhaps added to a melt of copper out of curiosity or by chance, resulted in a metal that was far stronger and more durable. This was tin bronze. By 3,000 years before the Common Era, centers like the great city of were mastering this new material. The consequences were immense. Stronger weapons could defend cities or expand territories. More durable tools and vessels improved daily life and storage. This technological advantage became a primary fuel for trade and the growth of the first empires. Archaeological work, like the excavations by James Millart, reveals that metallurgy was deeply intertwined with the very structure of society. metal objects rapidly transformed from practical items into powerful symbols. The elaborate gold and silver work found in the royal cemetery of crafted using an advanced technique called lost wax casting, were not merely personal treasures. They were statements of divine authority and immense wealth, solidifying the power of rulers and creating a visible social hierarchy. This craft was supported by sophisticated furnace technology and the exploitation of local ore sources, with knowledge and finished goods flowing along the great river routes of the Tigris and Euphrates. How did such a transformative knowledge, born in this cradle of civilization, manage to cross formidable deserts and mountains to reach new lands? This innovation was already traveling, carried along trade routes that would bring it to the banks of another legendary river, the Nile. The sun-baked banks of the Nile witnessed a metallurgical tradition as enduring as the civilization it helped build. While Egypt learned the basic craft of copper from its neighbors, it perfected this knowledge on a colossal scale. By the time of the Old Kingdom, state-run expeditions were mining copper in the Sinai Peninsula with an almost industrial intensity. Yet for the Egyptians, metal was never merely utilitarian. Gold, flowing from the rich deposits of Nubia, became the very flesh of the gods and the definitive symbol of pharaonic power. It was considered a divine, incorruptible substance, and master craftsmen transformed it into breathtaking objects like the funeral mask of Tutankhamun, an artifact designed to last for eternity. This work was a sacred duty performed in temple workshops under the watch of priests. As noted by Egyptologist Rosalie David, the act of metalworking was a spiritual ritual, a transformation of earth into divinity. Technological innovation was driven by this profound purpose. The development of more effective bellows allowed furnaces to reach the higher temperatures needed for consistent alloying. During the Middle Kingdom, Egypt fully embraced bronze but faced a strategic challenge. The kingdom had ample copper, but the crucial tin needed to create bronze was scarce locally. Its presence in Egyptian workshops points to long-distance trade networks, with tin likely traveling from as far away as Anatolia or Europe. This reveals an early, interconnected world where a civilization's technological advancement depended on resources from beyond its borders. Inscriptions at sites like the Wadi el-Hudi amethyst mines detail the complex logistics of these state-sponsored operations, from organizing laborers to securing trade routes. Even the rare, precious iron found in Tutankhamun's tomb, possibly crafted from a meteorite, was valued more for its celestial origin and symbolic power than its practical strength. So why did Egypt's relationship with metal remain so uniquely its own, even as it participated in a global exchange of ideas? The answer may lie in how completely they fused the material with their identity and their gods. This distinct path was not the only one being forged, however. Far to the east, in the meticulously planned cities of the Indus Valley, another great civilization was developing its own revolutionary approach to metal, one that prioritized precision and urban stability over divine monarchy. While Egypt built monuments to the gods, the Indus Valley civilization engineered a society of remarkable stability. Its great cities, Mohenjo Daro and Harappa, were planned with a precision that speaks of a highly organized mind, and their mastery of metal was a cornerstone of this urban order. By 2,500 years before the Common Era, Harappan artisans were producing copper and bronze objects of incredible consistency, from standardized weights for trade to practical tools like fish hooks and chisels. This was not metal for divine kings, but for a functioning, complex society. They relied almost entirely on local resources, drawing copper from the mines of Rajasthan and gold from the rivers of Karnataka, a system of efficient resource management that fueled their self-sufficiency. The famous dancing girl statue, a bronze figure barely 4 inches high, captures their technical and artistic spirit. She is not a rigid idol, but a lively individual, cast with a confidence that reveals a deep understanding of the human form and the metal itself. How did they achieve such widespread uniformity in their products, from the weights in one city to the tools in another, hundreds of miles apart? Archaeologist Jonathan Mark Kenoyer suggests this points to either a form of centralized quality control or a widely shared set of trade norms that governed production across the entire civilization. Their technical skill was formidable. They employed casting, forging, and even an early form of welding, joining separate pieces of metal to create stronger, more complex objects. Recovered artifacts like finely polished copper mirrors and expertly crafted bronze vessels attest to a culture that valued both function and beauty. This craft specialization was vital, allowing some individuals to focus entirely on metalworking, which in turn drove innovation in alloys. By carefully mixing metals, they created stronger, more durable bronze for tools that built their cities and for vessels that stored their goods. The Indus script, which remains one of history's great puzzles, may yet hold the key to their commercial life. Many of the recovered seals and inscriptions could very well be records of metal transactions, inventories of the copper and bronze that flowed through their economy. We see direct evidence of this trade at the port city of Lothal, with its sophisticated dockyard likely facilitating the export of Harappan copper to distant Mesopotamia in exchange for other goods. This reveals a network of cross-cultural exchange, where metal was a universal currency of technology and connection. What truly enabled this civilization to achieve such a high level of consistency and organization, creating a standardized system that endured for centuries? The answer seems to lie in a profound commitment to social order and meticulous planning, a trait that finds a powerful parallel in another cradle of civilization, where a different relationship with metal was being forged along the Yellow River. The ritual bronzes of China's Shang Dynasty were not merely objects, they were conversations with the divine. Cast in gleaming bronze, these intricate cauldrons and wine vessels served as a direct link to ancestral spirits, a perfect fusion of artistic mastery and spiritual technology. While other civilizations forged tools and weapons, the Shang elite poured their greatest metalworking resources into creating these ceremonial instruments. This reveals a world where power was not just held by the strong, but by those who could communicate with the heavens. The origins of this tradition stretch back to the Magyao culture around 3,000 years before the Common Era, where early experiments with copper began. But it was the Shang, over a millennium later, who elevated bronze casting to an unprecedented scale and sophistication. Their secret was a unique piece mold technique. Instead of casting a single object, artisans would create a clay model of the vessel, carve the intricate designs directly into it, and then surround it with a segmented clay mold. The model was then shaved down to become the core, and when the mold pieces were reassembled, the gap between core and mold was filled with molten bronze. This complex, labor-intensive process allowed for the sharp, detailed patterns of touty masks and mythical creatures that define these sacred objects. Many of these bronzes were inscribed with the earliest known Chinese writing, oracle bone script, directly linking the power of metal with the practice of divination and royal authority. How did the Shang state manage the immense logistical challenge of fueling this bronze culture? The answer lies in control. Tin and copper were sourced from mines in the Middle Yangtze region, a massive operation requiring centralized management of resources and labor. As historian K.C. Chang observed, this focus on the ceremonial rather than the purely utilitarian set China's Bronze Age apart. metal was the medium of state ritual and social order. This cultural priority extended to sound as well as sight. The development of high tin bronzes created bells with perfectly tuned, resonant tones, essential for the elaborate musical performances that accompanied court ceremonies. The tomb of the military leader Fu Hao provides a stunning case study. Her final resting place contained over 440 bronze objects, including massive ritual cauldrons, weapons, and bells. This collection was not just treasure, it was a direct assertion of her immense political and religious status, proving that in Shang China, metal was the currency of legitimacy. This raises a profound question. How did Chinese metallurgy maintain such a distinctive character for centuries, even as ideas flowed along the steppe routes? The answer seems to be a powerful cultural confidence, an ability to absorb outside influences while fiercely preserving a core identity centered on ritual and ancestral reverence. This interplay of isolated development and distant connection was not unique to the East. A similar story of local innovation and global inspiration was unfolding far to the west, in the sun-drenched islands and palaces of the Aegean. Gold gleamed in the sun-drenched courtyards of Crete long before the rise of classical Greece. The Minoans, by 2,000 years before the Common Era, had mastered the sea and the forge, their artisans creating exquisite gold pendants and finely balanced bronze blades. This was not a craft of isolated villages but the engine of a vast maritime trade network. Their workshops, often located within sprawling palace complexes like Knossos, hummed with activity, producing goods that were exchanged across the Mediterranean for ivory, amber, and other raw materials. The Minoan aesthetic was fluid and naturalistic, a stark contrast to what would follow. Their success, however, drew the attention of the mainland Mycenaeans, who saw in this metalworking skill a new language of power. The Mycenaeans adopted the Minoan craft but infused it with their own warrior culture. They produced not delicate jewelry but monumental symbols of authority, like the stone lions guarding the Great Lion Gate of Mycenae, and deadly, inlaid bronze daggers depicting hunting scenes found in the rich burial shafts of their grave circles. These objects were clear statements meant to project strength and legitimacy. The very materials for this Bronze Age splendor came from afar. Cyprus supplied vast quantities of copper, while the essential tin likely journeyed from sources as distant as Cornwall in Britain. This reliance on far-flung resources, as highlighted by archaeologist Oliver Dickinson, made metallurgy the ultimate elite pursuit. Hoards of bronze and gold stored in palace treasuries were not just wealth, they were the foundation of social stratification and political control. Smiths held a vital, specialized role in these palace economies, using sophisticated crucibles to perfect the alloying of copper and tin, creating a consistent, reliable bronze. This technological network was breathtakingly vast. The Uluburun shipwreck, a vessel that sank off the coast of Turkey around 1300 years before the Common Era, serves as a stunning snapshot of this globalized age. Its cargo held 10 tons of copper ingots, along with a precious store of tin, glass, and exotic goods, a tangible record of the trade routes that connected empires. The symbolic power of metal even wove itself into the foundational myths of the region. The legend of the Minotaur's labyrinth, a cunning and inescapable structure built for King Minos, can be seen as a metaphor for the sophisticated, almost magical technology of the palace workshop, a place where earth was transformed into something wondrous and dangerous. This entire world, so dependent on the flow of bronze, was remarkably fragile. What could possibly cause the collapse of such intricate, interconnected societies, and what new metal would rise from their ashes? A world built on bronze was about to shatter. Around 1200 years before the Common Era, a profound shift began in the Near East, a slow-burning revolution that would eventually redefine civilization itself. The age of iron had arrived. Initially, this new metal was a rare curiosity, often sourced from meteorites and treated with a reverence reserved for celestial gifts. But its potential was immense. Iron ores were far more common than the tin and copper needed for bronze, scattered across hillsides and plains, waiting for a technology advanced enough to unlock them. The great challenge was heat. Smelting iron required temperatures several hundred degrees hotter than those needed for bronze, a fiery barrier that initially kept it out of reach for most. The Hittites of Anatolia are widely credited as the first to systematically conquer this challenge, building specialized furnaces and developing the knowledge to work the stubborn metal. Their mastery may have granted them a significant military edge, forging weapons that were stronger and more readily available than their bronze counterparts. This was more than a new kind of sword, it was a shift in the very foundations of power. As metallurgist Jane Waldbaum explains, the spread of iron was a slow process, not a sudden explosion. It demanded not just hotter fires, but a new kind of knowledge, a deeper understanding of chemistry and temperature control that took centuries to diffuse. The key breakthrough was carburization, the intentional addition of carbon to the surface of the iron. This process, essentially an early form of creating steel, transformed the relatively soft metal into a material that could hold a deadly sharp edge, far surpassing the durability of bronze. This technological leap was made possible by the bloomery furnace, a simple yet effective structure that produced a spongy mass of iron mixed with slag, known as a bloom. This bloom was then repeatedly heated and hammered to force out the impurities, a labor-intensive process that required immense skill and strength. The ripple effects of this new technology were catastrophic for the old order. The vast, intricate trade networks that for centuries had funneled tin from Cornwall to Cyprus and copper from Sinai to Mesopotamia began to collapse. Why sail across treacherous seas for a rare metal when the raw material for a superior one could be dug from a local hillside? This disruption shattered the economic foundations of the Bronze Age empires, empowering new groups who were not dependent on the old routes. The Philistines along the Levantine coast and the Dorians in Greece rose to prominence, their societies built on the accessibility of iron. This was a democratization of metal. While bronze was often hoarded by elites to arm a small, professional warrior class, iron could be produced in village forges. Cheaper, more abundant iron tools transformed agriculture, allowing farmers to clear land more efficiently and plant larger crops. But its most profound impact was on warfare. Now, a community could arm a much larger segment of its population with effective weapons. The rise of large infantry armies, the hoplites of Greece and the legions that would follow, was a direct consequence of this metallurgical shift. Across Europe, the proliferation of Iron Age hill forts stands as a testament to this new reality. These were not palaces for god-kings, but communal strongholds, places where ordinary people could now defend themselves with iron-tipped spears against any threat. So why did iron eventually surpass bronze in nearly every region? The answer lies in a powerful combination of practicality and changing human landscapes. Its abundance broke monopolies, its strength offered new possibilities, and its accessibility empowered new forms of society. This story of technological upheaval, however, was not confined to the Eurasian continent. Far to the south, across the vast Sahara, another center of innovation was mastering iron in a context entirely its own, developing techniques that would fuel empires and shape the course of a continent. The story of metal was also being written along the banks of the Niger River and in the Ethiopian highlands, where communities forged their own path to mastery. In sub-Saharan Africa, evidence points to an independent genesis of metallurgy, a tradition born not from foreign contact but from local genius and necessity. At sites like Taruga in Nigeria, archaeologists have uncovered the remains of sophisticated iron smelting furnaces dating back to 1,000 years before the Common Era, a time when the technique was still in its infancy elsewhere. This challenges older narratives that placed the origins of African ironworking solely on influence from the north. Here, the furnace was more than a tool, it was a sacred space. The process was often accompanied by spiritual rituals, with offerings made to ancestral spirits to ensure a successful smelt, perfectly blending technological practice with a living cosmology. This fusion of the practical and the spiritual, as noted by archaeologist Peter Schmidt, reveals a worldview where transforming rock into metal was an act of profound cultural significance. The technological achievements were remarkable. African smiths developed highly efficient forced draft furnaces, using carefully placed clay tires to channel air into the fire, creating the intense heat needed to extract pure iron. In regions like modern-day Tanzania, they were producing high-carbon steel, a material of superior strength, centuries before it became common in Europe. This was not a primitive craft, it was an advanced and locally tailored technology. The famous Nok culture of central Nigeria provides a stunning example of this dual mastery. They are renowned for their expressive terracotta sculptures, but they were also skilled ironworkers, producing tools and possibly ritual objects that served their community's needs. Further south, the civilization of Great Zimbabwe rose to power between the 11th and 15th centuries of the Common Era, constructing its monumental stone enclosures and dominating trade routes that stretched across the Indian Ocean. Their wealth was built on gold and copper, metals mined and traded for goods from as far away as China and the Persian Gulf. In West Africa, kingdoms like Benin and Ife used their mastery of bronze and brass to create objects of immense social and political power. The intricate lost wax castings of Benin plaques and the lifelike bronze portrait heads from Ife were not mere decorations. They were assertions of royal authority and historical record, worn as crowns and displayed in palaces. The Kingdom of Mara in Sudan became so renowned for its iron production that its massive slag heaps were later mistaken by outsiders for natural hills, a testament to an industrial-scale operation that even supplied the Roman Empire. So how did these distinct African traditions shape the continent's history amid global exchanges? They provided the technological foundation for powerful states, fueled vast economic networks, and created artistic traditions that expressed unique cultural identities. This independent spark of innovation was not a solitary flame, however. A parallel story of discovery was unfolding an ocean away, in the isolated and vibrant civilizations of the Americas, where metal would find a purpose unlike anywhere else in the world. Across the vast Pacific, the story of metal took a radically different path. In the high Andes, civilizations like the Moche and the Inca achieved breathtaking mastery over gold, silver, and copper, yet they did so without ever using the wheel for transport or developing iron tools. Theirs was a metallurgy of artistry and spiritual meaning, a tradition that began in North America as early as 2,000 years before the Common Era with the Old Copper Complex, where communities cold-hammered native copper into functional tools. But it was in South America that this craft reached its zenith. Andean smiths invented ingenious techniques like depletion gilding, a process where a gold and copper alloy object was treated with acidic solutions, eating away the copper at the surface to leave behind a pure, dazzling golden layer. They also created tumbaga, a versatile alloy of gold and copper that was both durable and required less of the precious gold, allowing for the creation of more substantial ritual objects. Here, metal was not primarily for war or farming. Its purpose was display and ritual to connect the human world with the cosmic order. The gold masks of the Sican culture, with their upturned eyes, were not portraits of individuals but representations of a divine being. Silver offerings, carefully placed in the waters of Lake Titicaca, were gifts to powerful mountain spirits. As anthropologist Heather Lechman has shown, Andean metallurgy was deeply concerned with color and symbolism. The brilliant sun-like gleam of gold and the cool moon-like shimmer of silver were not just decorative, they were physical manifestations of cosmic principles, of complementary forces that governed the universe. This philosophical approach shaped their entire technical process. While they knew how to smelt and cast, they also excelled at cold hammering, patiently shaping native metals with stone hammers to create intricate ornaments. For the vast Inca Empire, metal became a tool of statecraft. The distribution of finely crafted silver and gold objects to loyal nobles was a powerful method of securing allegiance and demonstrating the emperor's divine connection. Yet, this deep knowledge had surprisingly limited spread. In Mesoamerica, outside of a few centers like those of the Mixtec, metallurgy was rare and almost exclusively reserved for ornaments such as bells and pendants, arriving late and never replacing stone and obsidian at the core of technology. The tomb of a Moch lord at Sipan offers a stunning case study. Discovered in the late 20th century, this royal burial was filled with a regalia of power, from elaborate gold headdresses and ear spools to nose ornaments and copper scepters inlaid with gold. Each piece was a masterpiece of symbolism, designed to proclaim the Lord's status as an intermediary between the earthly and spiritual realms. This raises a profound and lingering question. Why, with such advanced skill in working precious metals, did the civilizations of the Americas not develop an Iron Age? The answer lies in a combination of environmental and cultural factors. The rich, accessible deposits of copper, silver, and gold may have satisfied all their perceived needs for both practical and sacred objects. Furthermore, the cultural framework itself, which so deeply valued the specific symbolic properties of these metals, may have provided little incentive to pursue the far more difficult and less visually striking technology of iron smelting. This stands in stark contrast to the interconnected Old World, where competition, trade, and the constant exchange of ideas created a relentless pressure to innovate. In the Americas, metallurgy flourished as a brilliant, self-contained tradition, a testament to the many ways humanity can reimagine its relationship with the earth. These ancient trade routes were the internet of their day, a sprawling network transmitting not just goods, but the very blueprint of civilization. Long before the famed Silk Road, the Bronze Age was sustained by a web of interdependence. Tin from the distant mines of Afghanistan made its way to the workshops of Mesopotamia, while copper from Cyprus traveled to the shores of Britain. This was a global system where no single civilization was truly self-sufficient. The Phoenicians, master navigators of the Mediterranean, became pivotal agents of this change. They did not just trade in finished goods, they carried the knowledge of ironworking itself, disseminating the revolutionary technology from port to port, from the Levant to the far edges of the Western Mediterranean. This movement of ideas was often driven by the movement of people. A skilled smith might be a prized captive of war, his knowledge a spoil more valuable than gold, or a migrant seeking patronage in a foreign court. As historian Andrew Sherratt noted, trade was never just about objects, it was a continuous conversation in technology. Across the vast steppes of Central Asia, nomadic confederations like the Scythians acted as another crucial link. Their mobility made them ideal conduits for spreading not only metal objects but entire artistic styles. with distinctive animal motifs appearing on everything from Persian gold to Chinese belt buckles. The exchange was a two-way street. The sophisticated lost wax casting technique, for instance, appears to have traveled between the Indus Valley and the palaces of Minoan Crete, adapted by each culture to express its own unique worldview. Even the composition of alloys could traverse continents. The knowledge of making brass, an alloy of copper and zinc, spread from the Roman Empire eastward through the Parthian Empire, eventually reaching Han Dynasty China. This long-distance technological transfer reveals a world far more connected than we often assume. What barriers could possibly slow such a powerful force? Geography was a formidable one. Mountain ranges, vast deserts, and treacherous seas naturally limited the flow of people and ideas. Yet, these same barriers could also accelerate innovation in isolated regions, forcing local solutions to local problems, as we saw with the independent development of ironworking in Africa. Shifts in climate also played a hidden role, opening or closing mountain passes with changing weather patterns and affecting the viability of remote mines. The greatest accelerant, however, was often human need. The demand for stronger weapons, more efficient tools, or more impressive symbols of power created a relentless pull for new knowledge. This intricate dance of exchange and isolation, of shared techniques and unique applications, set the stage for the next great question. How did these scattered sparks of innovation eventually coalesce into the systematic, world-changing force we now call the scientific revolution? The rugged hills of Cyprus hid a treasure more valuable than gold, a rich green stone that would feed the world's hunger for copper for centuries. These landscapes were not passive backdrops but active participants in history, their very geology shaping the destiny of civilizations. The presence of a major ore deposit, like the copper in the Troodos Mountains or the tin in the streams of Cornwall, could transform a remote region into a bustling hub of industry and innovation. Early miners, armed with little more than stone hammers and antler picks, learned to read the earth, following colorful mineral stains that hinted at a rich vein beneath the surface. They used a technique called fire setting, heating the rock with a fierce fire and then dousing it with cold water to shatter it, a dangerous and laborious process that filled the tunnels with smoke and dust. The work demanded immense communal effort, with entire villages or specialized teams dedicating themselves to the task. At Timna in the southern Levant, archaeologist Benno Rothenberg uncovered how a simple seasonal mining camp gradually evolved into a permanent settlement, complete with furnaces for smelting the ore right at the source. This was a profound shift, moving the entire production chain closer to the raw materials. The social organization of these operations varied dramatically. In some places, it was a communal endeavor that brought prestige to the workers. In others, like the famed Laurian silver mines of Athens, the immense wealth that funded the city's powerful navy and its democratic experiments was extracted through the hardship of a vast labor force, including many individuals who worked in extremely difficult conditions. The environmental impact was also significant, with ancient slag heaps and deforested hillsides standing as lasting monuments to this early industrial activity. The search for specific ores drove exploration and trade. The distinctively shaped oxhide copper ingots from Cyprus have been found in shipwrecks and palaces across the Mediterranean, a standardized unit of trade in a globalizing Bronze Age economy. But what happened when a vein ran dry, when the most accessible ores were finally exhausted? This very scarcity became a powerful engine for change. It pushed smiths to develop more efficient smelting techniques to extract every last bit of metal from lower-grade ores, and it forced entire cultures to adapt, to seek out new resources or invent new materials altogether. The relentless pursuit of metal was about to enter a new phase, one defined not by finding richer ores, but by mastering the very chemistry of transformation itself. The real magic of metallurgy happened not in the mine, but in the furnace. It was here that rock was reborn, transformed through fire and ingenuity. The earliest smelting was a crude but profound act. Artisans would dig a simple pit, line it with clay, and fill it with a mixture of crushed ore and charcoal. Then, with the steady rhythm of bellows, they would force air into the fire, pushing the temperature past 1000 degrees Celsius, the critical threshold where copper would finally weep from its stony prison. This was a delicate chemical dance known as reduction, where the carbon monoxide from the burning charcoal stripped the oxygen away from the metal ore, leaving behind pure, liquid copper. Success was never guaranteed. The slightest shift in wind, an impurity in the ore, or an error in temperature could ruin an entire batch, yielding nothing but useless slag. To improve their chances, these early smiths learned to add other minerals called fluxes. These substances acted like a chemical cleanser, bonding with the rocky impurities in the ore to form a glassy waste that could be easily separated from the valuable metal. This was the foundational knowledge upon which all later metallurgy was built. The great leap forward came with the evolution of the furnace itself. The open pit gave way to the shaft furnace, a tall, chimney-like structure that contained the heat more efficiently and allowed for a continuous process. By the Iron Age, the bloomery furnace had become the engine of the new Metal Age. It produced a spongy, glowing mass of iron intermixed with slag, known as a bloom. This bloom was then pulled from the furnace and hammered relentlessly while still hot, a brutal process that forced out the impurities and consolidated the metal into a workable billet. The skill required was immense, a perfect synchronization of heat, hammer, and human endurance. This technological evolution was not a single path but a branching tree of global innovation. In China, by the 5th century before the Common Era, engineers had developed the blast furnace, a revolutionary design that could reach temperatures so high that iron itself melted, allowing it to be cast into molds just like bronze. This produced vast quantities of cast iron for tools and weapons, fueling the expansion of the Han Dynasty. Meanwhile, in Sri Lanka, smiths built wind-powered furnaces on hillsides, harnessing the monsoon winds as a natural bellows. In Europe, tap slag designs allowed waste to be drained away during the smelt, resulting in a purer final product. And in Japan, the sophisticated Tatara furnace, a large clay box, was used for days at a time to produce the exceptional steel needed for legendary samurai swords. As historian Theodore Wertheim documented, each culture engineered solutions based on their local resources and needs. What all these ancient smiths shared was a relentless pursuit of control. They were mastering the invisible chemistry of the airflow, the precise mix of charcoal and ore, and the subtle art of reading the color of the fire. The challenges they faced in achieving consistent results were monumental, but their solutions unlocked new possibilities. This hard-won mastery over the smelting process set the stage for the next great act in the story of metal, where the raw, transformed material was shaped into objects of power, beauty, and enduring legacy. The moment a new metal was born from the fire was an act of pure alchemy. A smith, perhaps weary of copper tools that bent too easily, tossed a lump of tin into the molten copper. The result was not just a mixture, but a transformation, creating bronze, a material harder and more resilient than either of its parents. This was not chemistry as we know it, but an empirical art, a knowledge of recipes passed from master to apprentice through generations. These early metallurgists worked with an intuitive genius, understanding that combining metals altered their very essence, lowering melting points for easier casting, and dramatically increasing hardness for superior tools and weapons. This creative science fueled the rise of empires as the demand for tin created vast trade networks. The Romans perfected brass by heating copper with zinc-rich calamine ore, producing a golden, corrosion-resistant metal ideal for coins and military fittings. In China, artisans crafted speculum, a specific copper-tin alloy polished to a brilliant, mirror-like finish for ceremonial objects. As historian Paul Craddock notes, the precise composition of an alloy can be a historical fingerprint. Variations in the tin content of Bronze Age artifacts across Europe, for instance, trace the ebb and flow of ancient trade routes, revealing which communities had access to plentiful resources and which made do with leaner mixes. This spirit of experimentation yielded a diverse family of alloys. Pewter, primarily tin with a little copper, became the common person's silver for tableware. Electrum, a naturally occurring blend of gold and silver, was prized for its pale, mysterious luster and used in the world's first coins in Lydia. The cultural weight of these mixes was immense. The gold-silver alloys used in Persian coinage were not just currency, they were a statement of imperial consistency and control, their fixed purity a promise from the king. Perhaps no alloy was more legendary than Corinthian bronze, renowned in antiquity for its beautiful patina and legendary durability, said to be made from precious metals looted from a burning city. How did this creative process enhance both function and beauty? It gave artisans a palette. They could now choose a metal for its strength, another for its color, and a third for its workability, blending them to create objects that were not only practical but also carried deep symbolic meaning. This mastery over the very substance of metal set the stage for its ultimate expression, where the smith's hammer would give way to the sculptor's chisel, transforming refined alloys into enduring works of art. A gleaming bronze statue of a Greek god was far more than a monument. It was a physical bridge to the divine, a testament to how metallurgy became the ultimate language of cultural identity. From the delicate filigree of Etruscan gold necklaces to the monumental Buddhas of the Silk Road, societies poured their deepest beliefs and highest aspirations into metal. This was not merely craft, it was coded communication. An amulet of iron worn around the neck was a plea for strength and protection, while a coin stamped with a ruler's profile was a declaration of authority that circulated through every hand in the marketplace. The material itself was part of the message. Gold, with its incorruptible, sun-like brilliance, was universally reserved for gods and kings, a tangible piece of eternity. Silver, cool and luminous, often represented the moon and feminine power. Iron, drawn from the earth and hardened by fire, symbolized unyielding strength and resilience. This symbolic vocabulary was understood across continents. In Mesoamerica, the Mixtec people hammered gold into intricate masks depicting their deities, believing the metal's radiant quality captured the very essence of the sacred. A world away in southern India, the Chola dynasty commissioned breathtaking bronze statues of Shiva Nataraja, the lord of the dance. These were not static idols. Cast using the complex lost wax method, they were designed to be carried in vibrant temple processions, their dynamic poses and multiple arms making the divine visibly present and active in the community. The creation of such works required immense technical skill, often reaching its peak alongside a civilization's artistic golden age. As art historian John Boardman has observed, the ability to master metal often mirrored a society's broader cultural and intellectual flourishing, a pattern seen from classical Greece to the Italian Renaissance. Techniques evolved to serve this expressive need. Artisans used repoussé, the art of hammering sheet metal from the reverse side to create detailed reliefs, to bring scenes from mythology to life on shields and palace walls. Every hammer stroke was a deliberate choice, every polished surface a calculated effect. The famous Benin bronzes from West Africa offer a powerful case study. These intricate brass plaques, which once adorned the royal palace, documented the entire spectrum of court life with stunning narrative detail, from military victories and diplomatic encounters to the precise regalia of the oba, or king. They were a historical record cast in metal, asserting the power, order, and sophistication of the kingdom. So how did this drive for beauty coexist with the need for utility? The answer lies in a seamless duality. A Viking sword was not just a tool of conflict. Its blade might be pattern welded for strength, while its hilt was inlaid with precious metals and intricate designs that invoked the protection of the gods, making it both a lethal weapon and a sacred object. A simple iron plowshare that turned the soil was also a family's livelihood, its form perfected over generations to be both efficient and durable. This fusion of the practical and the symbolic reveals a profound truth about our ancestors. For them, there was no clear line between an object's function and its meaning. The metal that tilled the earth was the same metal that honored the heavens, each object serving the dual purpose of sustaining the body and nourishing the spirit. This deep connection between creator and creation raises a final, compelling question. What became of the individual hands that wielded the hammer and tended the fire, the master artisans whose silent skill built the visible world? A copper spearhead might bend against a shield, but a bronze one could pierce it. This simple difference in material reshaped the very nature of conflict, turning raids into conquests. The Sumerians wielded copper axes in history's earliest recorded battles, but the true military revolution arrived with bronze. This stronger alloy enabled not just better weapons, but comprehensive armor and the swift, terrifying war chariots that became the signature of empires like the Assyrians. A single chariot required immense bronze resources for its fittings and the armor of its crew, making this technology a tool only the wealthiest states could deploy effectively. This monopoly on military power, however, was about to be broken. Iron, far more common and affordable than bronze, fundamentally changed who could fight. Historian Robert Drews suggests this shift contributed to the collapse of the great Bronze Age palaces by democratizing the tools of war. No longer was a full bronze panoply the exclusive right of an elite warrior class. Now, a larger segment of society could be armed with iron spears and swords, leading to the rise of massive infantry formations. The Roman legionary with his standardized gladius sword and iron helmet is the ultimate expression of this new reality, where the strength of an army lay in its organized, uniformly equipped citizen soldiers. This evolution was not just about offense. Defensive gear underwent its own transformation. The Greek hoplites' bronze armor, a panoply including a helmet, breastplate, and greaves, had to be meticulously crafted by a skilled smith. Its protective value depended entirely on a perfect fit and the quality of the alloy, turning the armorer into a strategic asset. Smiths traveled with armies, their mobile forges becoming as vital as any supply line, capable of repairing weapons and crafting projectiles on the move. Their knowledge directly influenced the art of siege warfare, enabling the construction of massive battering rams with iron-tipped heads and the creation of durable tools to undermine fortress walls. So why did certain metals become so deeply linked with military power? The answer lies not just in the battlefield, but in the economic foundations that allowed metal to be produced on an immense, sustained scale. The true wealth of ancient empires was measured not in land, but in the liquid glow of metal. From the bustling markets of to the forums of Rome, standardized copper ingots and silver coins became the world's first universal currency, a tangible trust that bridged languages and cultures. This was the birth of a true economic system, where the control of a single mine could determine the fate of a city-state. The legendary silver mines of Lorient, for instance, did more than just yield precious metal. They directly financed the Athenian navy that defeated Persia and underwrote the grand architectural experiments of its golden age. Across the Sahara, the immense gold reserves of the Mali Empire fueled sprawling trade routes, connecting West Africa to the Mediterranean and establishing a reputation for wealth that echoed across continents. This metal-driven economy created entirely new social roles. Specialized classes of miners, smelters, and smiths emerged, their skills so vital they often formed powerful guilds that influenced urban politics and safeguarded their hard-won technical knowledge. The sheer logistical effort was staggering. State authorities implemented strict standardization of weights and measures to ensure fair trade, from the stone weights of the Indus Valley to the bronze balance scales found across the Roman world. This reliability in measurement gave rise to early banking, where temples and palaces acted as secure storehouses for metal wealth, issuing loans and stabilizing economies based on their reserves of gold and silver. The economic impact was profound. Historian Angus Maddison's analyses of pre-industrial output suggest a strong correlation between a society's metal production and its overall economic growth. Yet this prosperity came at a cost. The insatiable demand for charcoal to feed smelting furnaces led to widespread deforestation around major mining centers, an early reminder of the environmental price of progress. Consider the vast Bronze Age exchange network that connected the amber coasts of the Baltic Sea with the metalworking centers of the Mediterranean. Amber traveled south, while tin and copper moved north, creating an interconnected economic zone that spanned the continent. How did this deep integration of metallurgy reshape the very fabric of society? Its influence extended far beyond the marketplace, quietly sculpting the hierarchies and rhythms of daily life for everyone, from the enslaved miner to the royal treasurer. A copper axe did more than just fell a tree, it carved the very structure of society. The mastery of metal created one of history's first great divides, the separation between those who controlled the technology and those who did the labor. In a Bronze Age village, the rhythmic hammering from the smith's workshop signaled more than industry. It announced a new social order. The artisan, covered in soot and skilled in a transformative magic, occupied a deeply ambiguous role. Among the Celts, these masters of fire were revered as near mythical figures, their ability to command the elements granting them a status akin to druids. Yet in Vedic India, the very same knowledge could confine a smith to a specific caste, respected for his vital skill yet set apart by rigid social boundaries. This was the dual legacy of metallurgy. It could elevate a craft into a sacred calling, or it could brand it as a polluting, outsider's trade. The ultimate power, however, lay not with the smith, but with the elite who controlled the mines, the trade routes, and the distribution of finished goods. Metal became the ultimate tool for consolidating authority. A king who could arm his loyal warriors with bronze spears and clad them in bronze armor held a monopoly on organized force, enabling the rise of the first centralized states. This concentration of wealth and power created a visible social pyramid, with a ruling class at the apex, supported by administrators and priests, and a broad base of farmers, laborers, and often enslaved individuals who provided the raw muscle. As scholar Joseph Tainter observes, the immense energy investment required for metal production, from mining to smelting, demanded a highly organized society. This organization frequently took the form of corvée labor, where citizens were compelled to contribute their work to state projects, or the reliance on enslaved individuals whose hardship in the mines and quarries fueled the entire system. The division of labor extended to gender roles as well. While the heavy work of smelting and forging was often, though not always, a male domain, women were frequently involved in the finer crafts of weaving gold wire for jewelry or polishing finished metal objects to a brilliant sheen. The knowledge itself was a closely guarded treasure, passed not through public texts but through the intimate master-apprentice relationship. A young person would spend years learning the secret recipes for alloys, the precise feel of the correct temperature, and the rituals that ensured a successful pour. This transmission was about more than technique. It was the handing down of a cultural identity, and it was within community rituals that this identity was most powerfully reinforced. In the potlatch ceremonies of the Pacific Northwest tribes, leaders would display and sometimes even break massive, shield-like copper plates. These were not mere displays of wealth, but profound acts of social bonding and status affirmation, where the destruction of such a valuable object demonstrated a leader's immense power and generosity, strengthening the community's hierarchical ties. So how did this powerful technology, which so clearly divided societies into rulers and workers, also manage to unite them? The answer may lie in a shared sense of purpose. The entire social organism, from the lowest laborer to the highest chief, was ultimately bound together by the collective effort to transform rock into power, an endeavor that gave everyone a defined role, however unequal, in the grand project of civilization. A corroded bronze dagger emerges from the dust of a forgotten tomb, its blade still hinting at a once deadly edge. This silent artifact is more than a museum piece. It is a direct message from the past, waiting for its story to be decoded. Every excavation, from the layered cities of Troy to the sacrificial pits of Sangsingdui, carefully recovers these metallic clues. The real detective work begins in the laboratory, where scientists use techniques like metallography to peer into the metal's very soul. By examining its microscopic crystalline structure, they can read the story of its creation, revealing whether an ancient smith intentionally quenched the steel to harden it or carefully annealed it to remove brittleness. This is like reading the diary of the artisan who crafted the object thousands of years ago. Simultaneously, isotopic tracing acts as a chemical passport. By analyzing the unique signature of lead isotopes within a copper ingot, researchers can often trace it back to the specific mountain from which its ore was mined, mapping ancient trade routes with scientific precision. As archaeologist Colin Renfrew has emphasized, context is everything. The layer of soil in which an object is found, its stratigraphy, along with the pottery, tools, and other items buried with it, provides a crucial timestamp. This careful contextual analysis has repeatedly corrected our historical timelines, showing that metal use in certain regions began centuries earlier than once believed. The Varna necropolis in Bulgaria offers a stunning example. Here, graves dating to 4,500 years before the Common Era contained a wealth of gold artifacts, intricate and masterfully worked. This discovery single-handedly forced a re-evaluation of early metallurgical sophistication in Europe, proving that advanced goldworking was not a later import but a local innovation. Yet metal presents a unique challenge to preservation. A golden object might gleam as brightly as the day it was buried, while an iron sword in damp soil can corrode into a fragile, rusty stain, its original form lost forever. This is why hoards are so invaluable. A collection of metal objects, perhaps hidden during a time of conflict or offered as a ritual deposit, provides a snapshot of a culture's entire metallurgical repertoire, from common tools to rare imports, telling a story of economic connection and cultural exchange. Sometimes it is a single, accidental find that shatters all previous theories. The recovery of the Antikythera mechanism, a complex assemblage of bronze gears from a shipwreck, revealed a level of mechanical engineering in the ancient Greek world that was simply not documented in any historical text. Its intricate gears, designed to predict astronomical events, speak of a lost tradition of precision metalworking. For every mystery solved, a dozen more remain buried. What other forgotten techniques and revolutionary inventions are still hidden, waiting for a careful brush to reveal their secrets? Some formulas for metalworking were so complex they vanished with the cultures that perfected them. The legendary strength and watery patterns of Damascus steel blades, for instance, were a celebrated secret of Indian and Middle Eastern smiths for centuries. Their method, lost by the 18th century, involved a specific type of iron ore from India and a precise thermal cycling process that modern metallurgists are still striving to perfectly replicate. This was not an isolated case. The Romans reportedly created an extraordinary bronze alloy known as Corinthian bronze with a beautiful, enduring sheen, said to be made from precious metals salvaged from a great fire. Its exact composition remains one of history's great metallurgical puzzles. Why would such valuable knowledge simply disappear? The reasons are as varied as the techniques themselves. Many of these arts were never written down, preserved only within the oral traditions of master artisans and their chosen apprentices. When a civilization experienced a major collapse, like that of the Minoans, the intricate guilds and workshops that held the knowledge were scattered. Their sophisticated methods for inlaying bronze with delicate threads of gold and silver, a technique known as damascening, faded from common use for centuries after their palaces fell. Historians like Cyril Stanley Smith have dedicated their careers to reverse engineering these lost arts, meticulously studying ancient artifacts and attempting to recreate the original conditions in experimental workshops. These experiments reveal the immense, intuitive sophistication of early craftspeople. Another reason for loss was the scarcity of essential materials. The unique properties of a famous alloy might depend on a particular ore from a single, now exhausted mine, or on a rare additive whose source was forgotten. In the Americas, pre-Columbian metalsmiths developed a stunning method of mercury gilding, applying a thin, flawless layer of gold to copper objects. This complex chemical process, which involved creating a mercury-gold amalgam and then carefully heating it to vaporize the toxic mercury, was completely lost after European contact and only understood again through modern laboratory analysis. How can we hope to recover these lost arts today? Advanced tools like scanning electron microscopes allow us to examine the molecular structure of ancient metal, reading the story of its creation etched in its crystals. This scientific detective work is slowly bridging the gap between past and present, offering glimpses into the minds of artisans whose names are lost to time, but whose genius is literally forged into the objects they left behind. A silent Bronze Age axe head rests under the beam of an X-ray fluorescence scanner, its elemental story suddenly made visible. This is the frontier of modern archaeology, where high technology is unlocking the deepest secrets of ancient metal. Techniques like scanning electron microscopy allow scientists to peer into the microscopic crystalline structure of a metal, reading the story of its creation like a diary. They can see the hammer marks left by a smith thousands of years ago and understand the precise temperatures used in the forge. Lead isotope analysis acts as a chemical passport, tracing a copper artifact back to the specific mountain where its ore was mined, revealing trade routes that were invisible in the historical record. These tools have revolutionized our understanding, debunking long-held myths with hard data. The legendary iron pillar of Delhi, for instance, was once thought to be forged from celestial meteoritic iron. But research by scientists like Michael Tite confirmed it was a marvel of terrestrial ironworking. its renowned rust resistance coming from a unique phosphorus content and a protective layer that formed over centuries. This scientific validation elevates the achievement from myth to a testament of human ingenuity. Another powerful approach is experimental archaeology, where researchers become apprentices to the past. They build replica furnaces using only period-appropriate tools and materials, smelting ore to test hypotheses about ancient techniques. How long did a smelt take? What was the exact fuel-to-ore ratio for success? These hands-on experiments turn abstract theories into tangible, repeatable processes. The findings from individual artifacts are then woven into a global tapestry through massive digital databases. By comparing the chemical signatures of thousands of objects, researchers can map the ebb and flow of technology across continents, watching as a specific alloy recipe or casting technique appears in one region and then slowly diffuses to another. A stunning example comes from Otzi the Iceman, the natural mummy discovered in the Alps. Analysis of his copper axe revealed that the metal originated from ore deposits in southern Tuscany, hundreds of miles from where he was found. This single data point paints a vivid picture of a highly mobile Neolithic world, where resources and people traveled vast distances. What new insights are emerging from this marriage of science and history? They consistently highlight a world far more interconnected than we ever imagined, where innovation was rarely isolated but was instead a collaborative, global project. A single timeline reveals a world of parallel genius. Around 4,000 years ago, master artisans in Shang Dynasty China were perfecting their intricate ritual cauldrons, while in Mesopotamia, smiths cast bronze weapons for imperial armies, and far across the ocean, Moch metalsmiths in the Andes hammered gold into spectacular ceremonial masks. This was not a single story of human progress, but a symphony of distinct technological paths, each composed by the unique pressures of environment and culture. The Old World largely followed a familiar sequence, copper giving way to bronze and then to iron. Yet in sub-Saharan Africa, evidence suggests ironworking emerged directly, without a widespread Bronze Age intermediary. In the Americas, the focus remained almost exclusively on the symbolic power of gold, silver, and copper, with iron never taking hold. Why such dramatic divergence? The answer is written in the landscape itself. Historians like Jared Diamond have highlighted the role of geographic determinism, where a continent's axis, its native plants and animals, and the distribution of its raw materials set the stage for technological possibility. Civilizations isolated by oceans or mountains, like those in the Andes, developed their metallurgical traditions in a bubble, free from the competitive pressures, and shared ideas that fueled the constant arms race in the interconnected Eurasian landmass. Their innovations were driven by internal cultural priorities, a deep desire to create objects that connected the human and spiritual worlds. Conversely, in regions like the Near East, the close proximity of diverse societies created a hotbed of exchange. The similar use of the complex lost wax or cire perdue technique in both classical Greece and the Kingdom of Benin centuries later presents a fascinating puzzle. Was this knowledge carried along trade routes by traveling artisans, or did two brilliant cultures, separated by vast distance, independently arrive at the same elegant solution to casting intricate forms? Such parallels force us to reconsider the very nature of invention. Periods of intense contact, like the Hellenistic era following Alexander's campaigns, acted as powerful accelerants, blending Greek metalworking knowledge with Egyptian and Persian techniques and spreading them from the Mediterranean to the borders of India. Climate, too, played a hidden role. Shifts in temperature could open or close mountain passes to tin mines, while prolonged droughts might destabilize the agricultural surplus needed to support a full-time class of specialized smiths. The story of metal, therefore, is not one of a single ladder of achievement, but of a vast branching tree. Each civilization climbed its own unique branch, reaching for a technological ceiling defined by the resources at hand and the values held in its heart. The fiery glow of the forge was seen as a glimpse into the celestial realm. Across the ancient world, the astonishing power to transform rock into gleaming metal was so profound it could only be explained by divine intervention. The Greek god Hephaestus, master artisan of Olympus, did not merely craft armor for heroes like Achilles. He poured mythic power into the bronze, forging a shield that depicted the entire cosmos. Similarly, in Hindu tradition, the god Vishwakarma served as the divine architect and smith for the gods themselves, his celestial workshop producing the weapons and palaces of the deities. These were not simple tradesmen, they were creators, their hammers striking in rhythm with the birth of worlds. This connection is powerfully echoed in West Africa, where the Orisha Ogun, god of iron, war, and the forge, is revered as a foundational cultural hero. Blacksmiths who worked in his name were performing a sacred duty, their labor a form of prayer, and their creations instruments of both societal order and protection. The legendary swords of folklore, from King Arthur's Excalibur to the Norse dwarven forged Mjolnir, were more than superior weapons. They were sentient partners in destiny, objects with their own will and moral compass, often choosing their wielder and refusing to function for an unworthy hand. This spiritual dimension created a complex web of taboos around the smith's workshop. In some cultures, the forge was considered a ritually dangerous space, a point of contact with powerful spiritual forces that required specific rituals to manage safely. The smith himself was a liminal figure, a mediator between the raw, chaotic earth and the refined, civilized world of human society. As folklorist Mircea Eliade noted, this mastery over the elemental force of fire placed the smith in a role akin to a shaman, capable of mediating between the earthly and the divine. How did these foundational stories shape the reality of the workshop? They provided a spiritual and social framework that governed the transmission of knowledge, enforced standards of quality, and elevated the act of creation into a cosmic partnership, ensuring that every tool and every weapon carried a weight far beyond its physical form. The same furnaces that forged empires also scarred the earth. To feed the endless appetite of the smelter, entire forests were felled for charcoal. The hills surrounding ancient mining centers like those on Cyprus were stripped bare, transforming lush landscapes into barren slopes vulnerable to erosion. This was the hidden cost of the Metal Age, an ecological footprint that stretched far beyond the workshop. The process created a cascade of damage, from soil degradation caused by open pit mining to toxic air pollution laden with heavy metal fumes. Water sources near smelting sites could become contaminated for generations by the runoff from slag, the glassy waste product of the smelting process. As environmental archaeologist J. Donald Hughes has observed, the overexploitation of a single critical resource like timber has been a contributing factor in the decline of societies, a poignant lesson from history about the limits of our environment. The sustainability of a metalworking operation hinged on its fuel source. Cultures in heavily wooded areas might practice coppicing, selectively harvesting fast-growing trees to allow for regrowth, while those in more arid lands faced a much steeper challenge, their industry ultimately constrained by the available woodlands. In response to these pressures, ancient cultures became early pioneers of recycling. Broken bronze tools and worn-out weapons were rarely discarded, instead being carefully collected and melted down to be reborn as new objects, a circular economy that conserved both raw materials and the immense energy required for smelting. The long-term effects on local biodiversity were often severe, with habitats destroyed and watersheds altered. the Roman world's insatiable demand for lead for its plumbing and silver coinage created a pollution signature so vast that traces of it have been detected in ice cores drilled deep in the Greenland ice sheets, a global testament to ancient industrial activity. How did these early communities attempt to mitigate the damage they caused? Some adapted by relocating their smelting operations once local resources were exhausted, a nomadic industry following the remaining forests. Others developed more efficient furnace designs to get more metal from less fuel. These ancient struggles between technological progress and environmental cost offer a profound mirror to our own modern industrial challenges, reminding us that the relationship between creation and consequence is as old as civilization itself. The skyscrapers that define our cities and the smartphones in our hands are built upon a foundation laid by ancient smiths. The very principles that guided a Shang Dynasty artisan casting a ritual cauldron are echoed in the precise alloying of titanium for jet engines, where strength and lightness are paramount. This is not a coincidence, it is a direct inheritance. The relentless human drive to innovate with metal, to transform raw earth into purpose, created a technological momentum that carried us from the bloomery furnace to the blast furnace, and ultimately to the modern factory. Ancient quality control, seen in the standardized weights of the Indus Valley or the consistent bronze mirrors of Han China, established the very concept of reproducible manufacturing, a principle that would fuel the Industrial Revolution and define mass production. The global networks that moved tin from Afghanistan to Mesopotamia were the prototypes for today's intricate supply chains, revealing that our interconnected economy has roots stretching back thousands of years. Historian David Christian's Big History framework places metallurgy at the heart of this story, showing how the control of energy and materials enabled the rise of cities, social complexity, and the modern world itself. Traditional techniques are not lost to history. They are preserved in living crafts, from Japanese sword makers using the Tatara furnace to Indian artisans practicing lost wax casting. Their work a bridge between ancient knowledge and contemporary art. Meanwhile, material scientists study the corrosion resistance of the Delhi iron pillar or the unique composition of Damascus steel, seeking clues for new, advanced alloys. This long legacy, however, compels us to consider the ethical dimension of our own consumption. The ancient struggle between industrial demand and environmental cost, seen in the deforested hills of Cyprus, finds its parallel in the challenges of sourcing conflict-free minerals for our modern electronics. What can the successes and failures of these early innovators teach us? Their story is a powerful testament to human ingenuity, but also a cautionary tale about the enduring responsibility that comes with the power to transform the earth. The secrets of ancient metal are not all fully understood. Some artifacts stand as stubborn enigmas, defying our modern explanations. The iron pillar of Delhi has watched empires rise and fall for over 1,600 years, its surface uncorrupted by the rust that consumes ordinary iron. How did its creators achieve such a feat without any knowledge of modern chemistry? Far out in the Aegean Sea, the Antikythera mechanism presents a different kind of puzzle. Its complex assembly of interlocking bronze gears, a level of mechanical engineering once thought impossible for its time, was designed to predict the motion of the heavens. We understand its function, but the identity of the genius who designed it remains a mystery lost to the sea. These are not isolated curiosities. In the Americas, the Moche culture crafted objects of platinum, a metal with an incredibly high melting point. Yet there is no evidence they possessed furnaces capable of reaching the necessary temperatures. How did they work this stubborn metal? This leads to an even broader question. Vast deposits of iron ore existed in the Americas, yet no widespread Iron Age ever emerged there. Why did these civilizations, so masterful with gold and copper, not pursue the harder metal that transformed the old world? Archaeologists like Susan Pollock note that such findings constantly challenge old assumptions. Recent discoveries of early copper smelting in Serbia, for example, are pushing back the timeline for metallurgical innovation in Europe, suggesting a more complex web of development than previously believed. The search for answers often focuses on lost sources. Scholars hunt for the legendary mines that supplied the specific ores for famous alloys, like the Indian ore used to create the watery patterned wood steel. Was the knowledge for this steel independently perfected in India, or did the core idea travel from another center of innovation? Many of our greatest historical insights come from accidental discoveries. A farmer's plow striking a strange object or a storm eroding a hillside can reveal a hoard of artifacts that rewrite our understanding of an entire era. Even a seemingly well-understood metal like brass has its own unresolved story. Its appearance in the ancient world, an alloy of copper and zinc, sparks debate over whether it was a deliberate invention or a happy accident that occurred in multiple places at once. With each excavation, new questions emerge to replace the old. What forgotten techniques or lost centers of production might still lie buried, waiting to reshape our story of the human journey? Our journey through the fires of Anatolia and the forges of the Andes reveals a profound truth: that our entire modern world is built upon the silent ingenuity of ancient metalworkers. Their discoveries in smelting and alloying did far more than create tools. They forged the very networks of trade, the structures of society, and the languages of art that connected the first global civilizations. We have witnessed how a single technological spark could ignite an empire, and how the relentless pursuit of a stronger blade or a more sacred vessel shaped the course of human history. Today, advanced science continues to peer into the crystalline structure of ancient artifacts, recovering lost techniques and solving enduring mysteries that remind us how much we still have to learn from these early pioneers. Reflecting on this vast global tapestry, it is clear that our metal-rich existence is a direct inheritance from countless anonymous hands, whose creativity and resilience truly echo across the millennia. I would love to hear which civilization's metallurgical achievements intrigue you the most, so please share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this exploration into history's hidden threads, subscribe for more journeys into the past, and let us continue unraveling our shared story together.